Welcome to the Roy Matlock Jr. Money and Business Hours, where he'll help you fix your finances once and for all. To reach Roy, call 615-843-2999. That is 615-843-2999, or visit RoyMatlockJr.com. Now, here's your host, Roy.
All right, Roy Matlock Jr. here, and we are talking money once again. You know, if you were tuning in just recently, we just had our 40 years that I've been doing this money thing, and we had our 40-year, best ideas for 40 years that we put on. If you visit RoyMatlockJr.com, you can find out about that. But today we're going to be talking real estate and some different unique ideas on how to maybe, do some things. If you're excited about real estate and looking for a business, that kind of thing, we're going to talk about that. I have Cliff Johnson, who is president of PadSplit. I've also got one of my advisors, Jake Robinson, on, and we will be speaking at I will be speaking at this conference coming up. We'll be getting more details. So welcome, guys. Welcome, Cliff. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So we're going to find out about a guy that he's president of PadSplit, and it's a housing platform, and it's a cool thing. I did a little research on, he's done some different, money raises to make this thing happen and taking it in a big way. I've got Jake. Jake's been with me. Jake Robinson is one of my advisors. Has been with me now about 30 years, and so Jake started with me and has been doing what we do now for over 30 years. But Jake, why don't you start it, and let's talk with Cliff and kind of get a better idea of what Cliff's all about. And for those of you listening today, I think it's going to be a different show. So, but you'll find out more about it as we go throughout.
So PadSplit is a platform that you can use to find renters that you can place into a facility, a house. And when I first heard about it, I was even telling Cliff this before we got on air, that it sounds like, PadSplit, I can take a spare room and rent it out, and they will set up they'll take care of renting it and collecting rent and all of that kind of stuff. And it sounds kind of like Airbnb in a way. But then I did my research, and I found out that it's much more evolved and developed. It's definitely a business proposition where you can go in and take a structure, maybe put 7 rooms at 7 bedrooms and 7 bathrooms, and rent it to 7 different people and be collecting rent. So Cliff, why don't you give us kind of an idea of how this thing got started, and how does it stack up against, say, a short-term rental versus long-term rental?
Oh, definitely. Appreciate it. And so the company started just about 7 years ago. Our founder, Atticus LeBlanc, and Atticus is still the CEO, and I actually lived in the same neighborhood as him here in Atlanta, so I got to know him well from the early days. And really what the whole concept is taking underutilized space and existing rentals and converting it into room rentals, essentially like either creating an extra bedroom or an extra bathroom, so that you're taking, you can imagine like the home size has gotten bigger every year that builders are building, yet less of that space is being used. So it's the easiest way to think about it might be, if you have a 3 to 4 bedroom house, you're not getting a lot of incremental value from a long-term rental for that 3rd or 4th bedroom. And then if you could take that one step further, add a 5th or 6th bedroom, or sometimes 7 or 8, you make it basically the same amount per bedroom for each additional bedroom you're adding. So our hosts on average are seeing about a 2 times net operating income that they see for a long-term rental, and at the same time providing affordable housing, which is a critical need across basically every city in America right now.
So, it's funny, Cliff, you talking about the big houses. My dad, he passed away 10 years ago, and I had a house. It was it was like a 7,000 square foot home, and he says, why people buy those big houses? And I said, why, Dad? I said, why do I do that? He said, so they can hide from each other. And so anyhow, I thought about that, and but that's kind of the we had all that space, and in many cases we never went there. All right. And that was when I owned the house. And so I'd imagine, places like that. What happens with zoning? That's one of my questions. If I had one of those, or if someone was wanting to start a business, and I think this is what I would call this. This is a business opportunity more than a real estate deal in my picture. All right. And what is some of the things you got to look into on that?
Yeah, I would say that the regulatory side was one of the early challenges, and I think it's getting better, but it remains a challenge. So at the federal level, HUD recommends that there be no difference essentially between allowing a certain number of family members in a house for room rentals or unrelated parties. Yet most jurisdictions have not adopted that language yet. And so it varies from place to place in terms of the maximum number of unrelated occupants that you can have in a house, even though in practice it's unenforced. And the easiest way I can explain this is any city that has a college, which is pretty much every city, has people that are not related living together. And usually it's more than whatever the limit might be in that city, but they don't kick all those people out of the houses. And so one of the things that we felt quite comfortable about is that, people should not treat working class, lower income community members differently than college students or other segments of the population that are living in these same type of co-living situations. And so there are some changes that have been happening that are promising. 4 states, Colorado, Oregon, Washington, and recently New Hampshire have passed state preemption bills that require people to treat, family and unrelated occupants the same as related to occupancy requirements. There's nuance to each bill. And then Texas just passed a bill recently where they've applied that same language to college towns, essentially, to try to create more housing. And so I think the trend is in the right direction. Cities acknowledge they have an affordable housing crisis, but as far as a given investor's appetite to either go up to the maximum number of unrelated occupants allowed, or sometimes beyond that, that's really up to the risk profile of the individual investor.
I got you. So
and you guys are solving a problem for people on the lower economic scale that they can't usually actually live in the area that they work in. They make a drive an hour to an hour and a half to be able to afford a place and then drive back and forth. So with what I've found.
All right, Jake, we're rolling right into the break. Guys, we'll be back.
Okay.
Visit RoyMatlockJr.com to come to our summit.
Welcome to the Roy Matlock Jr. Money and Business Hours, where he'll help you fix your finances once and for all. To reach Roy, call 615-843-2999. That is 615-843-2999, or visit RoyMatlockJr.com. Now, here's your host, Roy.
All right, we're back, and segment 2 today is a little different. We are talking about some real estate options. I talk to people all the time, and I have them call in, and they buy rental houses, and they buy things like, they may do Airbnbs. This is a little bit different. I've got Cliff Johnson on. He's president of PadSplit, as well as Jake Robinson, and Jake's one of my advisors, been with me forever. And we're talking about, kind of the short-term rental, but also at the same time being able to maximize and make more on that. My family, we grew up in the rental business, and we had my dad, mom and dad. My mother just turned 102 years old, and she may be the oldest renter owning rental properties of anybody, because they bought their first duplex when they were 19 when they got married. And so far to this day right now, we still have some rentals left. We got rid of a bunch of them, and when he passed away, he fooled with them. He liked doing it, but I think he had as many as 40. It was before the short-term rental stuff. But anyway, so today we're talking about that. So if you're thinking about doing things that are a diversification to your income, and one of them, real estate, is something that you're interested in. We're going to be at a summit next week. It's November 20th. And Cliff, tell us what's going to happen at Rocket Town here in Nashville and what's going to go on with that. And then Jake's going to start back with some good questions.
Yeah, that sounds great. And it's an awesome personal story, too, to have the 40 rental investments acquire over time. So it's something I'm trying to build within my family.
Yeah,
But,
we used to ride around on Sundays, and it was funny. Sunday afternoon, what did we do? We rode around and looked at his houses, to make sure nothing was going wrong. And so that was his Sunday afternoon drive. And so anyway, but
yeah, that's great. Well, yeah, I think, great segue into the summit. It's an opportunity. There's going to be a lot of great speakers there. Our CEO and founder, Atticus LeBlanc, will be there talking about the PadSplit model. But then Pace Morby, Clara Arroyo, and like many other people that have experience and co-living and real estate investing in general will be there talking about how to build a real estate portfolio, maximize your profit, but then also tie that back into purpose. And so that's one of the things that we say a lot at PadSplit is that people come for the profit, but stay for the purpose. And essentially, you can make more money converting homes into room rentals, but you can also create affordable housing that really matters and makes a difference to the tenants that are staying in your properties. So once people get a taste of that, they really like both sides of it.
And this summit is going to be at Rocket Town in Nashville. So if you're in the Nashville listening area, they can get tickets. They go to roymatlockjr.com, and we've got access to free tickets to that event. And if you, it's going to be going on for give them the hours and everything.
Yeah, so it's going to be from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then their Pace has an event after that from 5 to 9. So it's an all-day affair.
All right. Good. So, Jake, you had some questions.
Yeah, so municipalities actually are supporting this because it's really not short-term rental. Can you give us an idea of how long someone typically stays in a PadSplit and the nature of that?
Yeah, our average tenure is 9 months. So while it is a flexible stay, we typically require at least a 12-week commitment for people coming in. And so it is a common thing where as we're going into different municipalities, trying to make sure we're explaining the difference between what we're doing and what Airbnb and other short-term rental platforms are doing. In fact, we've had quite a few, as you're probably aware, like the short-term rental industry goes through more ebbs and flows. And as more supply comes in, some of the properties might not perform as well. So we've had a lot of short-term rentals convert into PadSplits and perform a lot better. And they're actually creating housing in the market as opposed to, I used to work in the vacation rental space as well. So I would always try to use the data to show most vacation rentals are not actually taking affordable housing stock, even though that's the narrative. In our case, we're actually creating affordable housing stock. So usually that allows us to differentiate and get more support from the local communities and city governments.
And there's another twist in there is that I see these guys that are really serious about PadSplit as a business. They're going into maybe areas that if I was a fix and flipper, I would probably pass up on a house that has a bus stop in front of it. But for PadSplit, you're actually catering to people who look for public transportation, something close to their job. So they don't mind a house being in an industrial area or maybe close to an Amazon warehouse because maybe that's where they work. They want to be able to get on a bus and commute there in 10 minutes instead of driving, an hour or so out of town, like I was mentioning earlier.
No, exactly. A lot of it really comes down to flexibility, convenience, and affordability. And I think a lot of people will think, that people come to us first for affordability, but it is a lot of it is, can I live closer to work? And only about half of our members have vehicles. And so that's another question that comes up quite a bit is, how do you accommodate parking for when you have 8 rooms in a house? And given that only half of them typically have vehicles, it's not a problem. And you can always limit the number of vehicles allowed at the house that you provide parking for. But you're exactly right. So a lot of properties that might not be a great fit for a flip or otherwise can be a great opportunity for a PadSplit.
So are you seeing people that have typical, they've got a normal rental property. They're converting that normal rental into something like this because they can get more cash flow out of it. And am I correct in that what your business really does is manage the rentals? Am I correct on that? How does that work?
Yeah, and so it is typically conversions from existing rentals, although we do have a lot of people that will target a specific property, buy it, and then convert it into a PadSplit. So we have both sides, people that are doing some renovations to get there, and then others that are lighter renovations. We don't do the full service management, but we are, I would say, like an Airbnb plus in terms of the service that we offer. So we do all the marketing to bring all the members in. We do the screening, so both background checks and fraud detection, those type of things. We do all the payment collections, so we do weekly payment collections. So the flexibility keeps people paying on time more frequently, keeps it pegged to their basically their pay scale and their pay schedule. And then we also do like ongoing support. So we have both host and member support. So, as needs come up in the house, we try to at least connect hosts to the resources that they need. And so they'll typically either manage it themselves, like as far as on the ground maintenance and housekeeping, cleaning, or they'll outsource that to a third party property manager, similar to how someone might do with like a short-term rental or a long-term rental.
But you guys actually find the renters. If I'm a PadSplit landlord, I don't have to go find the renter. You guys do that, right? You collect the rents.
Exactly. We do all that. And then if you do find your own renter, we pay you for it. So essentially that try to make sure that, if we're not fulfilling that part of the value prop, you're not paying for it essentially. So.
Gotcha. So I'm just sitting here thinking about, the overall business model is, it used to be that, people would never jump in a car, with someone they don't know. And now that's a normal way of doing things with Uber and Lyft. And then, the Uber Eats and all the different things like that. And in the case with you guys, your business model is you're providing a service for landlords for the sake of it. And depending on how they want to make that happen. And it's kind of in some respects, you're getting the biggie fries is what's happening. You want to upgrade to the biggie fries. And what you're doing is upgrading, to extra rooms in a property and turning it into, more cash flow. Hey, my name is Roy Matlock Jr. We're talking real estate today. Visit RoyMatlockJr.com and, do a couple things. You can get some tickets to the summit, which we'll be doing next week, or give us a call at 615-843-2999. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the Roy Matlock Jr. Money and Business Hours, where he'll help you fix your finances once and for all. To reach Roy, call 615-843-2999. That is 615-843-2999, or visit RoyMatlockJr.com. Now, here's your host, Roy.
All right, we are continuing talking money. Roy Matlock Jr. here, and today we are doing an interview. I don't do a lot of interviews, but I thought this was something very interesting. Cliff Johnson, president of PadSplit, is with us, along with one of my advisors, Jake Robinson. Jake was the one that kind of, found out about this, and we're going to be at the summit that they're putting on, and it's going to be on November 20th, and it goes all day. You can get tickets to that. I will be speaking and give a little background. I'm not a landlord, but I grew up around it. And I think, I always tell people that if you want to be in the real estate business, just remember it's a real estate business. And this is an opportunity for people that that want to have a business. This would be a way where you can take some of your investment dollars, put a little bit of your time into it, outsource a lot of the heavy lifting, which is dealing with getting renters in the door and collecting money and things like that. And that's what PadSplit does. And so we're continuing talking about that, but it's a mission-driven housing platform, affordable shared living type of environment. We'll be talking about what all else is going to be, what are the different topics that are going to be coming on at the summit, Cliff?
Yeah, I mean, it's really going to cover, a variety of different real estate investment strategies. Pace is big into the sub-2 communities, so he'll be talking about how those deals work and, what to look for.
Talk about sub-2 when you say that.
Yeah, it's subject to deals. So essentially you're assuming someone else's mortgage that they have on the property. And so there's a wide variety, which would take a long time to get into the mechanics of where that works and what you should watch for.
So let me ask you this, Cliff, when you say that, so are you basically, for the sake of it, my dad did this forever, he would rent and give them an option to purchase. And so it did not cause, the mortgage to be a due on sale or anything like that. So are you saying maybe something very similar to where, subject to, and then they can rent it, they maintain the low interest loan on that property? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, the mechanics of how the deals are structured do vary quite a bit. Like in some places, it's explicitly allowed that essentially they can resell that mortgage. And in those cases, they're the cleanest. In others, there is some type of ongoing relationship between the person who is holding the note and the person who's operating the property. So a lot of it really comes down into the nuances versus what you were mentioning, which I think is a really interesting opportunity for us to pursue, or at least for our hosts, the people who own the properties. We see more and more people who are the owner of the property who are renting out rooms in their house to help pay for the mortgage, and then using that as an investment vehicle to go out and buy a house where they are the owner occupant living by themselves. And so there's a lot of different paths to kind of whatever house hacking or whatever it might be to try to get to that first deal that doesn't require as much cash down, or at least improves your cash flow while you're in the deal. So I think one of the things that will be interesting in a summit is there will be people there that are talking more about how to break into real estate investing versus like how to scale and how to diversify. And so I think we can kind of fit in all three of those areas.
It's interesting today. We've got people out there, and I tell it, it's like gold. Don't ever pay it off. And that is when you've got this 2.5% loan, or 2.6, I think it got down to 3.5% loan. I'm like, it's gold. Don't ever pay it off. And even if you want to move, you would be better suited to negotiate deals to where you could not sell it, but lease it with an option to purchase, and let people pay a down payment, and, they can exercise the option whenever they want. And you might even be able to make a spread, by carrying financing, and even though you're not effectively carrying financing. But it's like, why would you ever sell these, 3% loans? So anyways, I don't know if that, so you're going to be getting into a lot of strategies at this summit. It's going to be, November 20th and, at Rocket Town, which is a cool place here in Nashville. I've been there before. So anyway, Jay, questions.
So Pace he's famous for arbitrage. He's basically taken a house that somebody's having a hard time selling. He assumes their mortgage, and he's paying the mortgage, but then he tricks it out for short-term rental, and maybe he doubles his income. So his idea is, I can go acquire houses without having to go get qualified for a mortgage and officially borrow more money. I can just take over these homes, satisfy the need for that couple to sell their home, or they're having a hard time selling, and then he is able to go out and through short-term rental make a profit on it. So that he's really good at doing that, and he's going to spend 4 hours from 4 o'clock to 9 o'clock, or on Thursday, just talking about that particular aspect of it. So. Can you tell us something about, the dynamics? Roy mentioned this, but we didn't really talk about it. Like, when you get a bunch of people, strangers, living in the same house, how do you maintain the dynamic of, everybody getting along? And I know you have some kind of membership. How does that play a part in that process?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And it's something that we try to keep simple, because if you get into the nuances, it can get more complex. But we essentially have 2 tiers for people to actually move into a PadSplit. So the first is that we do our standard screening, like across the board. We do a criminal background check, fraud detection, and income validation to qualify them as a PadSplit member. So they have to do that before they can request to move into any home. But then each host is allowed to have their own screening criteria. So they can have a stricter criteria or looser depending on, what they're optimizing for. And so then so they'll become a PadSplit member after they pass our criteria. But then to actually move in the home, each individual host has the option to say yes or no as people are trying to move in.
And so when you have a membership, they can actually, it's like being almost like part of a timeshare. They can go from one PadSplit to maybe move across the state or move across town or across the road. And but because of that membership, they have to perform, right? They have to be a good citizen.
Exactly. And so that's something that I think works in the favor of balancing the marketplace, where the members really appreciate the flexibility to be able to transfer between homes. If they, let's say they get a different job and they need to move to a different part of town, whatever that might be. But to your point, they all are being rated by their fellow members that are living in the house with them and by the hosts. So if they're not a good member, if they're not good to live with, then people are going to know that they're going to be less likely to get approved to move into the next one. So
somebody like me or Jake that snores might get kicked out. Is that it?
Yeah, well, I would say that's a really interesting one you bring up, because that hosts know that actually creating enough soundproofing between the rooms is a key part of keeping a happy house. So there's a lot that you can do that just keeps people working better together. But I will say, one of the things is there's an assumption going in that it's going to be hard for strangers to get along. But usually what happens is they're more standoffish. Like if you think about when you're meeting someone new, you're probably not generally going to give them all of your baggage. Some people do, but usually people are on better behavior when they're first meeting other roommates. And then they will form natural bonds and everything like that. But, most of the time people don't spend that much time in the common areas. They spend more time in the rooms on their own. And a lot of them are working pretty long hours. So and the hours don't match up. So in general, we don't see a lot of challenges. The stuff naturally comes up. We have 27,000 plus rooms on the platform. So we'll see even from the basic stuff, like somebody stole someone's peanut butter and they're mad about it, onto bigger challenges where someone needs to be evicted and that creates more.
Gotcha. Well, this has been good. We've got one more segment that we're going to continue talking. My name's Roy Matlock Jr. We're talking about, we'll call it souped up short-term rentals and things like that today. Visit RoyMatlockJr.com and find out about the summit that I will be speaking at coming up November 20th. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the Roy Matlock Jr. Money and Business Hours, where he'll help you fix your finances once and for all. To reach Roy, call 615-843-2999. That is 615-843-2999, or visit RoyMatlockJr.com. Now, here's your host, Roy.
All right, we're back and finishing up, and today we're talking about just an alternative method to earn money. I've always believed this, and I've got Cliff Johnson. Cliff is with PadSplit, and then I've also got Jake Robinson, one of my advisors. But I thought I'd take a minute as we kind of recap some of this. And if you're listening in, you can always visit RoyMatlockJr.com and listen to the podcast. And we also are on YouTube, all this kind of stuff. But this has been an interesting show because, I always believe that the number one thing you have to do if you want to get ahead financially is you got to find something you like doing. All right. And that is the key element, because if you don't like what you're doing, you're never going to get good at it because you're never going to put the time into it. And as a result, you're not going to be an expert. And so the most important thing you can do when it comes to making money is to find something you like, become good at it. And then what happens, you become more innovative and your value proposition goes up. And so that's the starting point. The second part of that is you turn it into a self-employed business. And when you do that, that gives you the ability to start to scale your income. You then start putting infrastructure in And when you do that, you can either outsource it or you can bring it in yourself. And then one day you wake up and you say, wow, I've got a business that pays me and it's running on its own. I've got support systems in place. And then you are putting yourself in a position to have what we call real freedom. And real freedom ends up with when you have time and money. All right, that's the key to it, and getting financially independent. And so it begins with building out that, finding something you like to do. So I know people, my dad was, and I mentioned this because, we're talking real estate. He was in the manufacturing business. He and I were exactly opposite. He was when it came to that stuff. Now, it came to other things, we're very much alike. But he was in the welding business, and he got into manufacturing. And Cliff, what he ended up doing when he sold his business, he had about 400 employees. He manufactured semi-trailers, and he sold the business. And then because he was used to an assembly line, he and one of his engineers that had worked with him, who was also retired, his name was Gerald. Gerald and him drew the plans, all right, for the houses. And Jake, I don't know if you know this or not, but that he went and built he went and bought lots and built the exact same houses, all right, on about 30 or 40 of these lots. And so he started out, he said, I'm going to make it easy, same exact thing, exact size. And he did that. And he and my mother, that's what they did to, they converted a lot of the business sale into rental properties. And the other thing that was interesting about it, he put back then, this was before, the days of the internet and all that, he put a mail slot in the front door of his house, and people would drop checks off. And he used to tell me, he says, I get up in the morning, walk down the hall in my underwear. And he said, I go to the front, and there's checks laying on the floor, rent checks. All right. And so that's the kind of stuff I grew up hearing. And, but when you start looking at rentals or anything like that, assume it's a business. All right. So that's my first thing that I've always said, find something you like, turn it into a business. If real estate is something that gets you all jazzed up and understanding, then this is a conference you're going to want to go to, which are coming up on November 20th. The second piece of the puzzle is you got to learn how to manage what you make. Now, I believe that there's a lot of rules on real estate. One of the number one things that you have to do is have good debt, not bad debt. And that good debt is you're not too leveraged. All right. That way you can withstand, down times. And then once you do that, you then take, and I always, I'm in the investment advisory business. And so I tell people then take your business income, take a portion of your business income, put it into something that you don't have to do anything for. All right. And that would be like what we do. We do manage money investments and things like that. And once you've done that, you begin to put together what I call the defense and the offense. And the defense is that you protect what you have. And I want to ask you about some things like that, insurance and different things of that nature. So what we're going to do is we're going to protect our assets and we're going to protect our income. And then we're going to go on the offense. And the offense is going to be able to grow wealth. And you do that a lot of different ways. One is you have, of course, equity and property and stuff like that. But I got a few questions and a few things that I'm going to cover, I know, at the summit. But what do you do about insurance, and how do you set these things up? Do you recommend LLCs for each of the, keep you from getting sued and whatever it may be? So tell us a little bit about that and how you guys handle that.
Well, yeah, no, I'm excited. It's a timely question because we launched an insurance product this year that we have exclusive for PadSplits. That's designed to really provide a more affordable option because a lot of insurance carriers don't have a specific product for co-living, or so it gets to be a little tricky in terms of like what's covered and what are they excluding. So we wanted our hosts to have as much clarity as possible. And so we actually partnered with a third party to create an insurance product for our host. And so that's been going really well. So, but there's also, oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So my question is, so if I bought one of those properties and decided to connect with PadSplit, I might put it in an LLC to protect, each property separate and stuff like that. But you guys have the resources of an insurance group that I could go through you and get insurance that's geared toward PadSplit type arrangements and do things like that.
Up until now, Roy, a lot of those guys were paying commercial rates, and it was very expensive. And there was not really any insurance company out there that wanted to cover this nature of a product. And now they have that, and it's a lot more affordable.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, and we've hit the scale where there's enough data for them to understand the risks, and so we're actually generally able to get people lower rates than whatever they've been paying before.
Yeah. So they're insuring not just liability; they're insuring the entire property, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And that's something that we're continuing to try to work with this third-party insurer, which is to some people want to keep their primary insurance but add a supplement, and so we just want to try to make it as flexible as possible. But the number one goal was making sure that everybody had an option to feel good about being covered. But to your point, setting them all up in their own LLCs is definitely advisable. I used to be a tax attorney before I started doing tech entrepreneurship. So the more protection you can give yourself, the better.
Yeah. So
let me ask you this, Cliff. How do you guys make money as a company? I mean, I'm sure you charge fees if you're doing the rental work of getting people set up there. How do you guys, and how can a person that wants to start in PadSplit, how do they get started? Is there training? Is there resources to learn how to best practices?
Yeah. So we do, the way we get paid, essentially we have a booking fee for each new member that moves into the home. That's the first 10 days. So it's similar to how a property manager might charge a broker fee for somebody that moves in, that type of thing. But it also, we set that up to incentivize the host to do a good job of ensuring the experience for the member was really strong and improving the tenure and everything. That's worked well. And then we get, after that 10 days, we get 8% of the rent ongoing, essentially. So, and that covers, the ongoing payment collection services, support, everything else along those lines.
So
you guys are collecting on a weekly basis versus a monthly basis, which is much more affordable for someone working at a job. That it kind of meshes with their lifestyle. And then, but go back to the second part of that question is, if I want to start PadSplit, what are the resources available for me to learn how to do it properly and get the most out of it?
Yeah, we have actually a thing called the Host Academy, which is a free thing that we offer through the company to get people started to learn the business. There's a lot of PadSplit hosts that also have their own courses. So some people will go through our existing hosts to learn that. But then we provide support along the journey as well. So insights on pricing, for example, to make sure that they're competitively priced relative to the competition in the market. And then just resources on what do I do if, I need to evict someone, whatever that might be. So in every market that we're in, we have a local network of vendors that can help with the different things that come up.
So
we're even bouncing some ideas around on, as wealth managers, how we can help PadSplit owners and landlords really maximize their income and their cash flow with tax and planning and things of that nature.
So if they are setting up a LLC, Cliff, it would make sense that, they're filing that LLC as a business. And so one of the things that we have always done, especially for solopreneurs for the sake of it, there's different, tax benefits that they're going to get from the, owning the real estate, but they're also going to be eligible to do self-employed retirement plans, from the profit on their business. And so, it's just different things like that we've been looking into. We think, hey, this would be, can you imagine you go out and you get you a handful of these things and you're making $100,000 a year and you're getting your depreciation, getting all the stuff. And then you turn around and can throw, 25% of that into a tax deductible, retirement account, and so it's stuff like that we've been brainstorming, here and there, when we started thinking about this. And then the other side is that for some people, they're fully self-employed. I don't know what are your biggest, give me an example of your biggest people. How many of these things do they have?
Yeah, I mean the upper end, we have people who have 500 to 1,000 rooms on our platform now, which I mean typically you're seeing like 6 to 8 rooms per house. So talk about 160 or so properties.
Wow. So they're really they're scaling it is what they're doing.
Yeah.
Wow.
We definitely have a segment there, and then we have a long tail. Like every year, we're growing about 70% year over year. So we have a lot of new hosts coming in, and then the appetite to scale is different for every individual. Some people are just getting started. Some already have access to capital figured out. But I think to your point on the opportunity to partner together, a lot of our hosts are really focused on their business of running their real estate side and are not focusing enough of their time, to your point, on the long-term wealth strategy. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
All right. Well, guys, this has been great. Jake, thanks for coming on. And we are excited, Cliff, to be a participant in the Scale to Summit. You can visit RoyMatlockJr.com to get your tickets. November 20th, I'll be there. We look forward to seeing you.